a couple more people straggling in, but that's okay. We want to give you time to work on what we have for you to work on. So Jill and I are doing Essential Understanding number 3, which is about storytelling and how they use various forms of storytelling for conveying meaning, history, messages, and things like that.
So I want to start with this quote. I found it when I was doing some research, and when I found it, they said that during a treaty session, this is what Sitting Bull had to say. And I thought that it's kind of a good thing because it's what we're doing. We're not going to read all of Essential Understanding 3 to you.
Spirituality still persists in Native American cultures. Their histories predate the discovery of North America, and their oral histories are as important as written histories or winter counts or anything like that. And so that's primarily what that.
I thought this was important to share, that in their storytelling it communicates morals or lessons, and it also offers entertainment to the listeners. And their storytelling is one of the primary keys to the survival of a tribe and their culture. And because they're place-based, it's quite unique.
So there are 4 ways that storytelling can happen: through narration, song, which obviously we appreciate a lot, group or play acting, and expressed through artwork.
So in doing my research, I came across this young man. He's Lakota. He grew up on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. His name is Frank Waln. He originally went to school to do pre-med, and he went to school at Crichton in Nebraska. And he was a Gates Millennial Scholar when he went. He had trouble adjusting to not being the brightest student in his class. So he came back to the reservation, and his mother said, "You need to give it another try." And he went to Chicago and studied in Chicago, and he studied music. And this is a story, this is at We Day, and he's a presenter at We Day, and this is a story from his experience in Chicago.
Hello, I just introduced myself in my language, Lakota. My Lakota name is Oyate Trecha Omani, which means walks with young people. I also go by Frank Wan, and I'm a Sichangu Lakota hip-hop artist. The song you just heard tells my story and the story of where I come from through music. Most of that story wasn't pretty or easy, but now I'm telling that story to the world, and I want you to hear it too. I was born and raised on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, one of the poorest and most underrepresented places in the country. I was living in somewhat of a bubble. In 2011, I left the Rosebud Reservation to go to school in Chicago. It was a culture shock, not only for me, but as it turns out, it was a culture shock for others as well. I remember one day in the elevator of the dorm I lived in, a young lady skipped the typical elevator small talk, and she asked, "Your hair is really pretty, what are you?" I said, "Thank you, I'm Lakota. I'm Native American." She looked at me confused and she said, "Aren't you guys extinct?" Stories are important. They shape our views and how others perceive us. We're either a part of the national conversation or a long-lost figment of history books. To the woman in the elevator, I was extinct. But back home, where I'm from, our story would say otherwise. Our story is overflowing with culture, passion, and life. Our story is so much more than a paragraph in a textbook or a token role in some movie. We're more than a box to check off or a footnote in history. I'm proud to be a voice for Native people. I'm even prouder to take the We Day stage and speak on behalf of the Lakota Nation. But like every other change maker in this room, I wouldn't be here without a strong support system. As they say, it takes a village, and not to brag, but I think the village behind me rivals the best. My mother, my grandmother, my aunties, they're the reason I'm on this stage. And when I left home to study in Chicago, there was one more woman who helped me tell my story. I was in a culture, race, and media class at the University of Columbia in Chicago, and I was much too shy to say anything in class. But the professor, Claudette Roper, refused to let me stay silent. And week after week, she would chip away and encourage me to share a little more, and she would make space for me. I was the only Native American in class to share who I am. And by the end of the class, it was the first time I had felt represented like I had back home. To the teachers out there, you do make a difference in your students' lives. Thank you for hearing my story. Thank you for hearing my truth today. Never be afraid to raise your voice and share your story with the world. Thank you, Wide.
This part is, this group is Brule. They are also out of South Dakota. And the leader of Brule is Paula Roche. And they performed at Mount Rushmore. This is a live recording. We're showing you the superintendent in 2011 of Mount Rushmore's presentation of Brule. But we also want to share with you the story of Paula Roche a little bit. Because he was adopted when he was 7 months, or very young, to white middle-class parents in southern Minnesota. And he was never told that he was Native American at all. So he grew up almost 35 years old before he found out that he was Native American, after his adoptive parents passed away. And so when he found out, in 2003, he got a phone call, and it was his brother, his real brother, who called and said, "Hey bro, I'm your brother and you're Lakota." And it kind of put him into a cultural shock, and he formed the group Brule after that, and Arrow, which is American Indian rock opera. And he tries to go around and teach people about both sides of who he is and how those cultures have mixed in him. And it's kind of cool. If you have a chance, check out Brule, because they're really cool.
And if you want to read, here's his story. I'm this far, so I'm almost done. And I'm happy to lend it out after that, because it's really fascinating about how he grew up in the white culture, and then his music is actually a combination of both cultures.
And it shows that a little bit. He always incorporates Native American dancers in their presentations. They use the Native American drums, and then they tell stories in their music. But it's rock and roll. It's heavy rock. So it's pretty cool.
At the beginning, you'll hear a little bit of their music, and then the superintendent at Mount Rushmore is speaking, because he also talks about storytelling, and that's why we wanted to share it with you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Mount Rushmore. My name is Gerard Baker, and I want to tell you right now, Doja Verigor. Welcome. I'm the superintendent here at this beautiful place. Mount Rushmore, in these beautiful and sacred black hills, has many meanings to many peoples. I think for me, first and foremost, right now, because of what we're experiencing in our fight against terrorism, having our men and our women fighting for us, this represents our freedoms. The setting here can't be any better. It's a beautiful day, a beautiful evening. And we start looking at these four presidents and amongst the sacred black hills, we think of many things. We think of all the times that in our past histories of our peoples, we've had some pretty negative times. Negative times of removal, for example, removing people from these beautiful areas to reservations. A time period when, as we mentioned last night, back in those days, we couldn't do this as Indian people. We couldn't sing, we couldn't dance, we couldn't even pray sometimes and have ceremony because it was illegal. How far we've come. What I encourage people to do to get together is to never forget about the past. but also we will still continue to have tremendous hope for the future, so that we will never again have to do that. So that our children can play side by side, no matter what color they are, no matter what language they speak, and no matter what background they come from. That we can get away from the terms and the activities related to racism and prejudice. Just by living here in this free country, to me, we are on our way. But again, the reality is that we have a ways to go. It is places like this, and it is events like this, that can truly bring us close together as human beings. Because again, we are one people. We are equal. We are equal to walk on this earth. We are equal to be free, as we see it in America. So with those thoughts in mind, I encourage you to keep teaching your children about who you are. I don't care what color we are, ladies and gentlemen, we should never forget our cultures. I don't care if we're American Indian, American German, American Norwegian, African American, Hispanic, and so forth. Number one, we are human beings. Number two, we are American. And above all that, we are free. So ladies and gentlemen, to bring us closer together tonight and to share this reconciliation of cultures, I am extremely proud to introduce to you Brule and the American Indian Rock Opera.
So you can check them out more. And this is a quote from Paul LaRush. You can read that. I thought that it was worth sharing today as we talk about storytelling. And Brule is a branch of the Lakota. There's Lakota and then there's 7 branches of Lakota, as I understand. So a good place for us as musicians to start with storytelling is with song. So I picked one of my favorite storytelling songs, and some of you may recognize this one.
This is what happens when we let Scoops direct our own ads. Nailed it!
Anybody know the song?
A child arrived just the other day. He came to the world in the usual way, but there were planes to catch and bills to pay.
And also in this song, there's a lesson. And we talked about that in storytelling, about how frequently there's a lesson or a moral. And in this song, there's a lesson.
And the cats in the cradle and the silver spoon.
You can sing along if you want.
The man on the moon. When you're coming home, Dad, don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good.
Oh, someone was singing. Awesome. So then I thought I would share Frank Wall's story through song with you. very cool. I don't know if you can see over in the emblem, that's off of MTV. So I think that's very, very remarkable that video was on MTV. All right.
Okay. Just side note off of this, Superman's song "Why" is also an autobiographical song that he does, and it's a pretty good song also. So stories that we hear or have heard probably are Aesop's fables, like the town mouse and the country mouse, about the town mouse who goes to the country and sees how the country mouse lives, and it's all safe and secure with enough food and a warm place to sleep. And then the country mouse goes to the city and sees how the city mouse lives and sees the luxury and opulence that mouse house. But the fear is always there of having to watch out for the cat and dog. So the moral of the story was, poverty without security is better than plenty in the midst of fear and uncertainty. So Aesop's fables always had a moral at the end of them. And the Native American stories, there are a couple of sites that they have a whole list of amazing stories. The nativelanguages.org/legends one has all sorts of really great stories by tribe, or you can do it by anyway, like origin stories or
Yeah, they're subtitled.
yeah.
They're into categories, and you can also do it by tribe.
So one of those is Old Man in the Beginning, and it's a crow legend. And I'm going to paraphrase. So there was an old man who looked for land in a land of water everywhere. He saw 2 ducks and asked them if water was all there was. They did not think so, but it was all they had seen. So they dived down one at a time and were gone a long time. One came back and brought a root. The other brought mud. The old man put the root in the mud and blew on it 3 times. It grew into a great land. The ducks who live in water, on land, and in the sky brought up the earth, and Old Man made the world for the Crow people. So that is one of the origin stories from the Crow tribe, paraphrased.
So I'm going to share these 2 books. These are the inspiration for this lesson. And they contain modern ledger art. So this is what a ledger would have looked like, and they've replicated that. It's a beautiful cloth-covered book. And then on the inside, all of the illustrations are ledger art, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And this book is not written or illustrated by Native American, but they did it with a Lakota advisor to help them so that they did it correct. And this book also tells the fictional story of Thomas Blue Eagle, and Thomas Blue Eagle ends up at the Carlisle School. So if you want a children's story that talks about that, and you guys can pass this around. And the other one is a Sitting Bull story that also uses ledger art in it. And this is actually by a Lakota author. S.D. Nelson is a Lakota author, and he's a member of the Lakota tribe. And this one also has ledger art, and it also has very interesting, just like being in a history book, has pictures, so it has a combination of both. And you can pass that one around and share that one also. We could talk about winter count.
Okay, so winter count were drawings that the Native American peoples would do during the winter time to record what had happened during the year. And prior to the military coming and trappers, they had a plethora of furs that they could do that on. After the forts came and the Indian agencies were here and the buffalo were wiped out basically, they didn't have the hides to do that on. And the ledgers were plentiful, and so they would do ledger art in place of the winter count while they were on the reservations and on the agencies.
And I found several sites that have great record keeping of, oh, I hope this one works, of ledger art. And here is one. This is Mad Bull Ledger, and they have them all categorized. And you can click on it, and it tells you lots of information about it, and it shows and also talks a little bit about the story, what they think it might be, and has lots of things. It's a great site. if you want to access that. And it's all in the PowerPoint that Linda will send out.
MSU Billings also has a collection of ledger art. It's from the Barstow collection. Most of the ledger art from that came from 1879 to 1897, when the Crow and Grovon Indians were on the Crow Agency, or at Crow Agency. There are 66 surviving ledger drawings from that collection. When the Crow delegation returned from Washington in 1880, there was a council of tribal members was held after that, and the gentleman who recorded all of that was Charles H. Barstow, and he was the chief clerk at Crow Agency at that point. He was there for 20 years, and it was his first and last government position. He had come west after his dad, who was a shipbuilder, died, and so he did that. He did a lot of things as an agent. While he was there, he encouraged the Native Americans at Crow Agency to make drawings of the things that were happening and provided ledgers to do that. He had all sorts of ledgers upon his death, but a lot of those were sold off or lost. He died in 1908 at the age of 59 and is buried in Billings. And in 1930, some of the artwork was found in a storage trunk in Roundup. And George F. Shea, the owner or manager of the Northern Hotel, came into possession of those, and they were trying to sell them for profit. And a lady by the name of Ruth Ann Wilbur Hines purchased them and then sold them to Eastern Montana College at the time, now MSU Billings. And she was then commissioned to clean them and mount them and keep them for safekeeping. So they have 66 pictures in their collection, or ledger art in their collection.
And I'm not sure what it takes to be able to see it, because it's in a special collection, I'm not sure. The Smithsonian also has a great collection of documents. A lot of ledger art, the ledger art that probably is the most well-known outside of this area, came from Fort Marion, which was in Florida. There were 37, I think, young Native Americans from different places in the plains that were held there as prisoners, and they did a lot of ledger art. And so the ledger art at the Smithsonian is from Fort Marion, and that's probably the most well-known outside of this area. Current ledger artists, there are current ones. There's a Northern Cheyenne, Elena Buffalo Spirit, and Artmobile, Montana has a lesson plan that you can access that has to do about her artwork. So this is modern and it's truly beautiful. I don't know if you can see this one. She didn't use a ledger, she used sheet music as the background. So she did her artwork over the top of the music. And just really beautiful. So it's artmobilemontana.org that has the lesson plan with her, if that's something that you're interested in doing. Terrence Gardepee is a Montana artist also who does ledger art, and there's one of his. Truly beautiful artwork. And then the last one is Daryl Growing Thunder. And his is at Prairie Edge. If you have not visited Prairie Edge in Rapid City, please do so. It's a great place to go and see all kinds of things. So here's a bit of his artwork, one that you could purchase at Prairie's Edge. But it's a wonderful place to visit and see lots of things. All right, so our ledger art lesson today comes from the Montana Historical Society. And it's quite in-depth. They have basic information for teachers. They have sample templates that are actually from ledgers from Fort Keogh in Miles City. They're authentic ledger pages that you can use in your lesson. They have background information for the ledger book pages. They talk about winter count, marking time. There's Fort Peck Tribal if you want to tie it into Fort Peck. If you want to do personal storytelling on oral traditions, they have some help for you there. Talks about all sorts of things. They have it from K through 3 all the way through 7 through 12. So it's quite an extensive lesson plan that you could do if you wanted to do something along here. They have PowerPoint presentations that you can use. I like this. We've seen this one before. These are the tribal lands about 1855. So about here, are we about there? One breeder maybe there? So it would have been Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara. Now I think that the 3 affiliated tribes. So those are great. All right. On to yours.
Okay, so I attempted to make some ledger art. It's probably not the best in the world, but I thought about what was the most exciting thing that we did all summer. And so our most exciting thing was going to Glacier for Bible camp as a family with our pickup and camper. And so that's what I tried to depict.
That's awesome.
You can tell it's a pickup and camper and there's mountains in the background, right? So that's what we are going to have you attempt to do, is make some ledger art.
You can do your winter count. Start your winter count. If you're looking for resources for in-class speakers, Humanities Montana is a great source. And they have some listed that I thought might work for us. And they waive their fee if it's for education. So you just have to contact them. 600 Generations Exploring the Indigenous Archaeology of Montana. Living with the Land. Tribal Foodways. Authentic Native Voices in Literature. Song of the Dawn Priests, History of the Crow People. Oh, no, not that one. I think there's one more at the bottom. Absoluca, Respect, Enrollment, and Contemporary Education. And Introducing Montana Native American Literatures. So there's some great resources if you wanted to have the speaker come into your classroom and speak on those things. And these are just my resources that I use. There's the Sitting Bull book, ledger book of Thomas Blue Eagle, the Plains Ledger Art, the Smithsonian Institution. And I said, if you haven't been able to visit Prairie's Edge, I encourage you to do so.
So we have some ledger pages here for you to go ahead and try to draw some ledger art.
And I have sharpened colored pencils for you.
Pass it down. Pass these around.
You can
back
pass
here.
around.
Here's one. Pass
Do
these
whatever you
around
want to
back
do.
up here.
Or you can get up, you guys probably need to stretch. So you can come and stretch and take whatever color you want. Oh, you guys are picking which ones you want to use. And if we don't have enough, I will quickly print off some
I'm
more.
doing ranch school here. And then I'll be ready to chill with Grand Friday.
In your research, when you were doing
And
this,
it's still like,
I can pass along to something like practice done.
yeah, I love it.
Did you run across something that's not appropriate to tell certain stories?
Yes, yes,
And then some not totally.
yes, yes. And some stories cannot be told until you're ready to learn the story.
Yeah, I mean, but that was one of the things about one of the workshops that I was at. Right, when we were getting into this, the big thing that they talked about is that,
Who has the book that I
and I think it's even the Kunai and Salish that
I know, I want to see both of them too.
still like to follow
The protocol.
their protocol. And then there's another tribe that says, if we have published them, we can share them and it
Those
doesn't
are
matter.
those.
So that that was kind of interesting that there wasn't a lot of agreement
Busy weekend.
One of the.
Oh, yes. I just cracked a Mountain Dew and it's, whatever it is. Just full of energy.
Oh, sure.
I'll take one of those.
No, do you want a prettier one?
But anyway.
I know, I had
I don't, am I doing a winter count or do I have to do what's a winter count? What's a winter count? Because I missed this, it's like chronological. It goes in a spiral. What's a winter count?
Winter count goes in a spiral. It's just the detailing of your year, so you're counting, or either of the year or of the year. So you're counting. That's like events that happen. Yeah. But they would start from the inside would be the most recent, so like in the middle of the winter, and then as you spiral out, you'll get to summer and then fall. Right. So you're counting. It's how they kept their annual records. So yeah.
So you like drop pictures?
Yep. You symbols representing what happened. I did it in Terry when I saw from the grade, and I took like brown paper sacks, and I would cut them out, and I'd crumple them up so they look like by beaver or by. There's a teacher in Jordan, he's a bomb. He actually killed the bison and tanned the hide, and then they did the down on it. Is he native? No. That's really cool. Yeah.
Like that one is though.
What time is
I think you can do it any way.
Oh, that's okay. That sounds right. It's
All those tabs I have open.
And it's even like upside down. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. See how it spirals out. Yeah.
This is hard. So you start recent and you go out to base.
I ledger art. It's how I found it. Oh, I didn't notice. She said on the front up here. Oh, yeah?
That's ledger.
Oh, yeah. Ledger art on the front of here. This is modern though.
So why did they, you probably said this and I missed it, why did they do it on ledges?
Because they didn't have hides anymore.
Oh, okay.
And that's like
And the
that.
ones that were in prison probably had that.
Yeah, and that's why that quote from Daryl Growing Thunder to me is so poignant about, he said, they used the record of how they made profit off of the Native American people as,
Wow.
it's just really profound to me that, yeah, the book that kept the profits that they made off of the Native American people.
Interesting.
It's another one of those kind of. Yeah, we were talking about how the front of this book is ledger.
I never noticed that. I didn't know that anything about this.
Oh, I forgot to share resources with you. I mess up sometimes. Here's a couple if you're doing some music things in your classes. This, Ms. Gordon has this at the library up here. American Music.
And there should be ones at Lincoln and Longfellow, I don't know where they are.
I have one in my classroom at Longfellow.
And this is
It's Blackbeat music.
Blackbeat music. Okay, it's this one. And then this one is Remembering the Songs. And there's one that you can access online too that's called, oh, this one. It's the More Than Just Flutes and Drums.
And
You can go OPI and you can access them all.
Yeah. And
All the
there's-
videos and everything.
Yeah, there's an accompanying CD, but I didn't grab that to give it to you.
Are there colored pencils for you to use? Okay. I don't have erasers, sorry. What's wrong? It's a secret?
So we drove through there because we always go to Richmond. That's where we go hang out. So I know exactly what
You don't want to show up your first grade?
Yeah.
that's a lovely place to live. So what does she do? I know she makes all these awesome art for Facebook.
You can tell what things are, but.
Right.
The weather there's perfect. They have the doors open all the time. There's no flies. I can't get over that. Oh, drive over there an
Mine would be stick people.
Tell them to go to the video, still know exactly. It's a big 7. Really. You'll love it. Oh, okay. It is. Yeah, the first time you kind of step off and that's that way.
Because we have people share.
Come on, I should have. Not that I took it. I went that out just half an hour last night. I didn't even draw.
Is Val ready to share? Oh, I need another. Oh, you're getting color now. Oh, this way, use your pencil.
You're lucky, you're getting in.
art and
And you can't really see it, right?
don't judge.
Some people are so amazingly talented. I am not amazingly talented. Hey, what was I doing there? Can you tell? Well, I wasn't coming, but I was the rate. Here's the rate.
Oh no, we're drawing the same picture.
I raped.
Work.
And I was proud, I never practiced once. You can't see my combine. So that's the problem. We're gonna share.
When you're done with that, make it square, make it square. That'll work.
The pencils work better.
The pencils work better. The thing, they were so minimal. It's always very flat.
I erased it to get white. I erased it.
Make it square, make it square.
Just take an eraser. It takes a little bit.
I'll put a thing around it. Yes.
Yeah, the copy.
So Sheila, are you the raker or the baler or the all of the above?
We're the baler, and that's rain coming down, and you're screaming at my kids to get the hell in the vehicle. Holy cow, is it raining again?
Anybody notice the photo here?
Oh, you must went to the ocean.
I'm doing like seasons.
Oh.
I don't know what I'm gonna do next, but.
Of lots of things.
So did you fly? Did somebody fly you or did you go on?
Mrs. Lesher? Because she got that book, Warsher.
Yeah,
Do you still have it over there?
So I gave it to.
Are you still hogging it?
Nope, I used it for my weed. I gave it to Mrs. Hastig. I think she was done with it.
Jessica gave it to
Mrs.
me.
Boggs.
Jessica gave it to me, I gave it to Callie.
There you go.
Okay.
I want you to know, I did find two new copies.
Did somebody buy it or is
They're
it
like
the library?
I think it's library.
$397.
Yeah. No, I think she went to some other library
requisition
and
form,
they
what's the
sent it to her.
problem?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, she just said I wonder if there was a used book dealer, if we could look on some used something.
They're like $200 at a used book dealer.
Are they just out of print?
Yeah.
They're out of print, and it was, I believe from what I can tell of the publisher, that they were probably self-published by Mr. Spang. And so it would be extremely expensive to redo them, because the publisher is very, very tiny. And the only copy that I could find to borrow was at the public library in Columbus, or in Gulfport.
So you bought this, right?
So I think
Where did you get it?
I'm pretty sure it's
Amazon.
Amazon.
I'm gonna put this in front of the camera.
She got it in her library, and I found it by searching
Library.
Okay.
Bicentennial Library.
That's how I found it, yes.
I looked at the last bookstore in LA. I was just looking for ledger books. My sister go down.
So
Things to help me with my research.
No, I mean,
That's why I found that. I think it's just fabulous. I love it.
because I was gonna, use all my resources, and there's only about 3 libraries that have it, and I found it in several languages. But if it's gonna cost that much.
Oh, oops.
Somebody has it. In a bookshelf somewhere.
You just bought a bit. Oh, no.
Quiet down. Whoa. These are
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
You need to
$12,000.
So what time are you having to leave? Are you leaving?
It's like the contrary, it doesn't matter if you say this.
You're doing the little send-off.
So I said, oh, I'm glad to hear that. That makes me happy.
It's 5:30, isn't it?
Parking at the car wash.
Come on, you didn't forget about that, did you, Karen?
I forgot Trent.
Is there anyone who's ready to share?
It'll be dark.
Pam is ready to share? Okay, Pam gets to share first.
When you have the lights
Anybody that knows me, I don't do anything but my grandkids pretty much. That's it. So there's Reed, who's 4, and Matthew, who's 2. And there's Fox, who's just 6 months old, in the baby carrier thing down here. And there's Vicky, who's just about 12, and she's got an angry face. Because she's tired of helping to watch the boys. Anyway, they're on a trampoline, and I wish Lynn's here. I am here. Grandpa took the boys to Hazen, North Dakota to rake leaves last weekend, and he filled the back of the pickup and he let them crawl on top of the roof of the cab and jump into the back of the pickup. And he has this on video. That's his story. That's why his grandkids love him more than me. And that's what they are. They have no fear.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Oh, sure.
Oh,
It's little. But I had a big family reunion, and if anybody's, there's Montana with roots here, if anybody's talked to me, you know that my mom grew up in rural Fallon, which, if you know where Cliff and Paul had householder live, it's like 6 miles north of their farm, north of Plevna, and my mom had 12 brothers and sisters. And so all the little dots here are the places I lived in. I was born in Havre, and then I lived in Scobie, and I grew up in Belair, went to school in Bozeman, taught in Thompson Falls. Here's Baker, and where my mom grew up, and then there's Butte, where we had our family reunion. And there were 90 people at our family reunion from just my mom's immediate family, and only 39 of us were from Montana, but everybody else came back to celebrate the Montana roots.
thank you, Laura. Come on, Austin, you know you want to share?
So, I drew where I got married this summer. So I got married up at Scalco Falls, which is on a pass between Phillipsburg and the Bitterroot. So I did an attempt at drawing a waterfall, and there's the road. And this side of the pass is all kind of scraggly and gross because there was a forest fire that went through there about 20 years ago. So those are all dead trees. The trees were over here are alive. And then here are wedding bands. Darby's has a sapphire and mine has an emerald. So.
Thank you, Austin. Oh, thank you.
You can't hardly see my picture, but I have my golden retrievers, and we're at the lake, and it was exciting. Like most of my students were excited because the lake is available for public use, and we talked a lot about that. So that's what I have. The girls can swim again.
Thank you, Bethel.
Oh, in the summertime, I work at KOAs, and this year I went to 6 miles behind Mount Rushmore, and the birds, there's always birds, and I like to draw birds, and just a couple weeks ago, our reading class was studying John Audubon, so man, was I in heaven. We were drawing birds.
But there's very nice to Linda.
Yeah.
Lovely. Better than my stick figure.
I practiced though. I've been practicing because I had to show the kids how to draw birds.
I can draw birds that look like bees. Anyone in the back row who's hiding? What to show?
I can share. Can I stay here and share?
Sure.
I drew a hayfield. We were there all summer. And I drew a nice green hay bales. And then I drew black rows because this got rained on. So it seemed like everything we baled this year rained. And then the sun was shining. And if you notice, I have 3 kids in the tractor with me and 1 playing, and Dirk has the 2 easy ones. Yes.
Thank you, Sheila. Amanda, you gonna share your hay rake?
Well, my tractor's red, so we And this is the tractor. I can't wait to take the picture and send this to my son to see what he thinks is happening. This is the rake, that was my job, and those are the rows, and they are kind of squiggly because if you are the swather and you're texting, which is what my daughter was doing, it's a little squiggly, and then I had to follow, and I got in trouble because I was supposed to have a straight line. And I was shading over here because I was okay getting up at 4 in the morning and going to rake and being done by noon, whereas she didn't want to get up till 10 in the morning, and she was happy to swath the rest of the day, so we worked out well. And my husband was just up the whole time. So, mine's a red tractor.
Ferguson, John
It's a
Deere?
case.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, and ours are green.
Yep, green and red. It's kind of like bobcats and grizz. It's red and green. There's some real lines drawn. Some real lines drawn.
It's ugly, whatever it is.
What kind of equipment you use?
Yeah.
My Peppa Pig whistle really good.
You spent your summer with Peppa?
No, me too. Well, I did symbols that represent me. That's what so like my family, I teach, I do a lot with the church, do different officer positions, I coach, I'm a daughter apparently, I like the fall, and I said Peppa Pig because has anybody seen the Nick Jr. thing where they make Peppa Pig out of a whistle? And I can't look at Peppa Pig without thinking her face is a whistle.
Blow in the nose?
Yes. Have you not seen it? They do these stupid Nick Jr. commercials and they like make different characters out of like household items and they paint Peppa's face and it's a whistle. And then if you've ever tried to draw a whistle and not make it look like a pee-pee, good luck. Lisa just kept saying, make it square, make it square, make it square. Jay would be proud.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Overshare anytime.
We need to congratulate Brittany because she was elected to the Baker City Council yesterday.
Hence her symbol about serving.
What?
Hence your symbol about leadership.
Yeah.
Serving.
Yes.
That's awesome, Brittany.
Yeah. Locked in for 4. Good luck.
Well, I think your camera's on.
Okay. It's not when I first started.
Well, I tend to do a winter calendar. I'm not sharing my drawing because I wrote words down because my drawing is like horrible. But I tried to go, I started from the summer and started with the haying thing and then starting volleyball. My life centers around my children and their activities and ranching and farming. So I just drew activities as we went. So volleyball and then started teaching and then we go into a little bit of fall harvest and then we'll go into basketball.
Now,
the list goes on.
When they did a winter count, because they were called winter, there was one picture for the whole year. Which one would you pick?
Winter?
I mean, because they did the winter counts, they did the drawing in the winter, but they had one picture for every year, and some of them would have 200 or 300 pictures on them and cover like 200 years, and the storyteller could tell you the story of every one of those years.
Of all the years. Okay. I misunderstood that.
No,
Okay.
but I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes that we think, but that's,
Yeah.
that's.
Oh, I probably choose, my winter probably, basketball probably takes that most of that.
Concession stands.
Well, but sometimes when they did the winter counts on the class that I had on them, the event was not necessarily something that happened in the winter, but they told the stories in the winter. So that's why they called them kind of the winter count thing, that was the stories. And it was a long time ago, so I may have gotten some of the things wrong, but it was interesting on how long that they could go, and historians have been able to find stuff like when there was a smallpox epidemic or something and count back and figure out when exactly it was because of the pictures on some of them.
Some of the pictographs tell the stories too. And if you ever get a chance to go to the Grass Range, they have a private pictograph area that predates most of the tribes that are currently in existence. And it's pretty cool. It's out, you have to go towards Forest Grove, and they have a phone number you call down at Little Montana, and it's really cool to go see it. I have a book at home that I don't have any idea where it is at right now because everything in the basement's still in boxes that has all of the pictures and stuff that they have in that. It's really fun to go hike down in there and see all of that.
I'm never going to go there this summer, and then you can't go when it rains.
No.
You have to go when it's really good
No,
weather.
you don't
And
wanna
we
go
woke
when
up
it's
and we were in Liztown, it was pouring rain, so we're like, oh, I guess we're not doing that today, but it's phenomenal. If you haven't looked up the pictures online, it's incredible.
It's even better in person.
Yeah.
Shannon, do you want to talk a little bit about Deer Medicine Rocks?
I could. So Deer Medicine Rocks is about just a few miles north of Lame Deer on Highway 39, and it's on John Bailey's. Is it John?
He just passed
Jack.
away, so I guess.
Yeah. So John's. Anyway, they work really well with visitors, whoever wants to come. They also worked really, really closely with the tribe to get it as a National Historic Landmark. But the history and significance of it is it was a camping site, and Sitting Bull had a vision there that they were basically going to defeat Custer, a guy with yellow hair, they called him. And there's, if you look at the rock closely, you can see a lightning jag through it. And there's also drawings there. And there are stories behind those too, but it was essentially a camping spot before that Battle of the Little Bighorn. And it's a pretty spiritual place. I mean, I guess, I don't know, I can share this story with you guys. When a lot of Sioux tribes came up to Chief Donlife College when I first started working for the tribe, and one of the elders, his name's Lee Lone Bear, he asked me to come to this meeting, and I said, okay. So I went to the college with them, and they said, well, we want to go out there right now. We want to go visit it. And Lee said, hey, can I ride with you? And I said, yeah. So we went, and there's a certain protocol you follow when you're visiting it with Cheyennes. And so like when they take kids out there on buses, they do this protocol too. So they'll stop 4 times and they'll pray. And there was a really powerful thing that happened there though, and I went with Lee because he was one of our ceremonial people, and it was really neat. So we led the way, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just this little 20-something-year-old leading the way with all these tribes behind me. And we stopped 4 times and we did that, and then the Sioux delegates started singing a song when we got out there. And I was like, Lee, where should I stand? Because I was the only woman out there too. And he said, well, just stand next to us. He says, stand next to me and you'll be okay. And so I stood to his left, and everyone else was on this side. And they started singing this song, and the Brocks were right in front of us. And no lie, a ton of voices came in from this side, and we're singing along with that exact same song. And so it was a pretty powerful, like, spiritual moment for me too, being able to go out there with Lee at that time, and he's no longer with us, so I was really grateful for that experience.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
I have a couple housekeeping things to talk about. So we have the PLC units that will be on the table over here, so you can grab them on your way out. And if you forgot to grab any of the others, I have backup copies if you need them from last time. And then we also have some of these posters that I got from OPI that Ms. Van laminated for us, and there's 5 of them, and they have the essential understandings on them. So if you want to grab one of these on your way out, you can grab one, and we can also print more. I got these from OPI, so they're like nice, but we can print them on the poster printer. You can hang them in your room or in your building or whatever you want to do. And then think the other thing was, do you guys want to do one in December or do you want to wait till January? I thought I'd ask here.
I'd just as soon wait till January, because December is already turning out, when I look at the calendar, to be pretty packed.
So we're on number 3,
How many
and
do
we have
to-
7, plus the workshop at the end. So that would put us on January, February, March, April. And then we'd have, so we wouldn't have a backup month if we took December as our backup month, because we'll have then the workshop probably in May. And that's a 2-hour workshop.
I said we plan one, if something crazy happens, you can.
I think unless we have a reason to, maybe we should try to plan one in December, and then if it doesn't work out, we can push it to February or January.
Because that would leave our 2-hour thing in April.
Yeah,
Then
or
in November,
May,
which
if those
is
are crazy.
Probably.
Yeah.
Worse than December.
May's far worse than December.
Yes.
So we can maybe try and see if there are too many conflicts. I was also gonna do it on a Thursday next week, or next month, because Josie Hadley hasn't been able to come on Wednesdays. So if we can kind of switch it, does that work for you, Austin?
Yeah.
Wednesdays, okay, so I'll try to get that out. And then the other,
Basketball on Thursdays in December, though, you need to know that.
High school basketball.
oh, maybe we'll do Tuesday then. Tuesdays, maybe.
There's stuff on Tuesdays.
Basketball and
From May 5th, December 5th on, there's something every night except Wednesday.
December 26th.
Oh, really?
That's my little elementary, like music concerts. There might be Mondays.
Maybe
Check a
Mondays.
Monday.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is, I was wondering if you guys were wanting to continue doing something next year, and if you can start thinking about if you want to continue what we're doing or something similar or something different, whether or not we need to write a grant or if we can just do it on our own. And I have some ideas, but I was also wondering if you guys would start thinking about it, and then I could send out a survey, or you can just start talking about it with each other.
I just have a thought on that. So
Yeah.
when we first started meeting the PIR committee, it kind of sounded like we were all in agreement that vertical alignment was something that we needed to work on.
And then we kind of went away from that because we talked about if we're gonna do curriculum alignment, it needs to be like everybody, kind of mandatory. So that's why we went away from that. So if we wanna revisit that but that would kind of be I don't know if that's an administration thing, because everybody.
Yeah, it's gonna be a time issue.
Yeah,
So.
like contract time, like that. We'd have to do it during contract hours, maybe. But maybe.
I mean, you know, the other thing is, if your staff is, you know, we're willing to do it after school, not everybody's going to school, but everybody's willing to go by the determination of this group, whatever group that is, and that's fine too, but, I always have fear of pushing things on people. So if they're okay with it, then that's great, but, otherwise, that might be something we look at, using PAR time, contract time.
So I think we have to decide, is it worth doing if not everybody's gonna do it, or do we need to do it on
Right,
contract?
or if people are okay with, hey, well, you guys do it, and then we'll just all kind of take what you put together and use it. That's fine too.
So maybe we can I'll send out an invite maybe in the spring and we can meet and figure out what we're thinking but I think we should just pick one if we're gonna do ELA or math. Probably just do one because it's a lot. And it's maybe not even a 1-year thing, so.
I want it.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? What do you guys think about continuing doing EFA stuff next year?
I like this. I like that we have just different stuff that we share with each other, sharing resources and information.
I like having different people do it, different content areas and different levels. I think that's been really neat.
Even if it's not AEMA next year, maybe we like some different content areas can share something that they're working on.
That would be cool, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the cohesion of it, even if it's just cultural diversity. I think we could have something cohesive that, under that umbrella maybe. And one thought that I had was having our teacher leaders who presented this year switch to do another essential understanding, but then bring in a mentee, not really a mentee, but bring in like a partner teacher that hasn't done it, and then they would actually present their lesson, but they would kind of work with a teacher leader that did it this year. So you kind of double, because I think like being in this position and preparing a lesson and presenting it to your peers, I think that's really powerful. So then we could kind of spread that and work with other teachers. That's kind of what my aim is. So I'll send out a survey later, and we'll see what everybody thinks. Okay. All right, well, the units are there, and then I'll just leave these on the music stand. And you can grab one, there's 5 of them.
Please, thanks.
Absolutely. I love it. It is.